use it. Curry, way downtown. Bang!
Reach scores! Yes! She got up!
He's just perfect. And
Sweet it is! Collingwood win the grand final! It's time!
Welcome to Racing Xtra, powered by Caulfield. I'm your host, Bella King, and joining me as always is Luke Dittman and Jack Jeffress. Now, we've had a tough week in the racing industry with Laura Lafferty and Ivy Lamb suffering nasty race falls, as well as news this morning that Jordan Grobb was involved in a nasty track work accident. This is a hard reminder on how tough our game can be, and all of us at Racing X want to extend our thoughts and prayers to each of them and their families. Well, boys, we're in the midst of what's already been an incredible spring carnival. Everest weekend next week. We've got Cup Week on the horizon. So we thought this week we'd do things differently and bring our viewers in for a Caulfield special episode. We have a huge card of Group 1 racing. But before we get into it, can you guys believe we're already up to episode 7 of Racing Xtra? Had $1 million cars, great guests, and some insane episodes already. Luke, what's your highlight been so far?
Oh, there's been many. Like it's been a whirlwind sort of 6 weeks, but I was quite surprised on the reach of Benny Scarf and what he's doing for the game. Like, you can love him, you can hate him, and I know there's two people on both sides of the fence, but what he's ultimately doing is bringing the punter back to the game, and especially the younger punter, the under 30s, and making them enjoy racing again. And look, like I said, you can love him or hate him, but you can't knock him for what he's doing for the industry, and big ups to him. Like, he's doing well.
For sure. And even on that note, we had Jack Jenkins in 2 episodes after, and he's a great ambassador for racing, everything that he does for this sport. And just having that dynamic of a champion UFC fighter backing our industry, it's exactly what we're trying to do here at Racing X with bringing that next audience in. So it was brilliant to have him on the episodes as well.
It just points out the fact that just because you love one sport, i.e. UFC, doesn't mean you can't love racing. And if you love racing, doesn't mean you can't love motorsport. So
100%.
We're just trying to bridge the gap that if you've got an interest in these American sports or motorsports, whatever it might be, you can come across to racing and have just as much fun, just as much excitement, and it's every day. You're not waiting for a game on the weekend or a race once a week or whatever it might be. It is an everyday event, morning, noon and night.
Absolutely. You can see why we all live and breathe it. Jack, what's your highlight been so far for Racing X?
I mean, I've loved sitting between the two of you guys, learning absolutely everything I can about the racing industry and just diving in deeper and deeper. But last week I got to sit right next to Andrew McCullough, and I've watched him grow up over all my years, and I was sitting there fanboying and just loved hearing the words come out of his mouth about his experience and just talking footy with someone that I've just modelled part of my game off of growing up. I love the sport, and it was just awesome to sit next to him.
There was a little squeal when he walked in the room, so yeah, we all saw it. We all saw it.
Well, on that note, the footy season's officially wrapped up. Both AFL and NRL have had just massive years. Both have made history, I believe. Jack, what was your highlight for the season?
Oh, God, love watching the Brizzy Lions get it done. And, of course, Parramatta, they're getting a new coach with Jason Ryall, so hopefully we see them do something exciting. And I got to witness the 4-peat, which is something that you'll hold within your memory forever, and it could potentially be 5 in a row. So
it was huge. So what's your predictions for next year? Who's taking out the premierships?
In the AFL, I think Swannies choked a bit hard this year, and they'll be keen for some redemption, so I might put them up there. And in the NRL, I'm going to go a little bit left field here, but I think it's not too far with the Bulldogs.
Oh. Luke, what's your predictions?
Yeah, it's a very, very early ratings here, but look, I think Storm bounce back next year.
Yeah.
Penrith, more than easy do it again, but look, I think it's 1-2, and I think Storm run over the top of Penrith in a grand final next year.
I'm all over Collingwood, and I've got 12 months to be proven wrong. So
yeah, well, I hope they lift their game. Otherwise, it's going to be a shit time at podcast studios if they keep getting beat.
Right? Oh, I won't hear the end of it. Well, before we get deep into the Caulfield form, let's take a quick look back at the weekend that was. Luke, we're heading all the way back to Randwick for your Tenacity Cranes lift of the week. How good was that photo finish in the Metropolitan?
Oh, huge from the two kids. My lift of the week has to go to Reese and Land Legend. His ride was brilliant. Little bit of a bumping duel at the top of the straight between him and Zardozi, but just the finish to the line with those two horses going head and head. That's what racing's all about. That's why we're excited. And look, Reese was just too good. He got the job done and he claimed his maiden Group 1 victory. So good on him. I know there's a little bit of controversy there in the stewards room. My personal opinion is, look, maybe you should have lost it, but he didn't. He did what he had to do. He spoke well, and yeah, the trophy's in his cabinet, and good on him for it.
Absolutely. I mean, if you can get that Group 1 off the track and in the steward's room, then, hats off to him.
Well, he should get 2 trophies. He won it twice, didn't he?
Well, Via Cecina proved us she was worthy of forgiveness as she stormed up the outside to take out the Group 1 Turnbull Stakes. Luke, your contender Buckaroo was hot on her heels for a close second. Are you still full steam ahead on him for a Caulfield Cup?
Oh, 100%. I think he's in a favouritism in a Caulfield Cup now, and so he should be. Everyone thought I was a mug when I took him at 50s about 6-7 weeks ago, and look at him now. But that Via Cecina, she keeps giving me nightmares. I backed to the start before when she had to travel and the rain-affected track, and she sort of faltered. And I think I did mention last week that she has to bounce back for me to love her again. And look, she did all she had to do. She was 3 deep the trip and still stuck on. But huge run from Buckaroo. He was a pair further back than I probably would have liked him in the run. He got out when he needed to, maybe just held up for sort of half a stride, and it was all the difference in going to the line. She was just too good to fend him off. But you go around in a Caulfield Cup in a couple of weeks' time, I can't wait to be on him. I think he's just too good in a race like that.
Do you think a bit of bad luck and potentially a slightly better ride could have got Buckaroo across the line first on the weekend? Because I was watching it and it was pretty close.
Nothing against Joe. It just, anyone who did the speed maps would have had him a pair closer, and I think that pair closer enables him to win that race. Now, whether Joe could have done X, Y, and Z to make that happen, yes, but he was behind a horse that couldn't cart him into the race, that he had to sort of make his own luck. And whereas if you're a length closer and you can do that, the difference in a bobbing finish.
So bad luck, Buckaroo.
Yeah,
Maybe
bad luck
next
for my
time.
bank balance is what it was.
Well, your pretender Warmonger, he stayed on like a stayer does. Do you still have him as a Cups hopeful?
The short answer is no. Look, I know that's harsh, but he was favourite for a Melbourne Cup at some stage, and I thought that was a very big overreaction to his win in Queensland. He met a good field on the weekend, and can he run better than that? Yes, he can. Can he run good enough to win a Caulfield or a Melbourne Cup? No, I don't think he can.
Okay, guys, well, looking at Caulfield this weekend, we're only going to lightly touch on race 6, the Group 2 Herbert Power. Is there anything in this race that, if it won, you're taking seriously in the Cups?
I think you got to let the race unfold to see if you take what wins this race into the Cups preludes. But look, I'd love to see a good run from Dashing Duchess. If she wins this race, then yes, I would take her seriously in a Melbourne Cup. Her runs have been good. Her previous runs have been good apart from her last where she faltered on the wet. So put a line through that. She's gone second, first. It's good enough to win a race like this. And if she goes ahead and wins a race like this, then yeah, you've got to sort of put a highlighter through her for the Melbourne Cup and keep an eye on her.
Definitely. It's a big step up in grade, so we'll definitely get a real mark on her class here. What do you think about Mr. Wolfgang? He's our unknown coming over here from New Zealand. He's a bit hard to line the form up here.
Well, it's a big trip for the Mackay team if he's no good. So you got to think they've got a high opinion. You got to think they got a real chance in it. So and they can breed a good stayer. So look, I know there's not much on the form books to take away from it. It's a bit of Kiwi form, but look, it wouldn't surprise me if we see a big run from that horse on Saturday.
Moving on to race 7, this is our first Group 1 of the day, the Might and Power, previously known as the Caulfield Stakes. Historically, this is an important pointer into the Cox Plate, which will be run in a fortnight's time. At the moment, this race is just looking like Mr. Brightside versus the rest to me. But this morning, a tissue has tightened into $4.80. Is this a Waller upset on the cards?
I don't think so. I don't think they beat the good horse. I think Mr. B gets the job done. Smallish field, Adelaide River, Deny Knowledge go forward. He gets a lovely run in behind them. Craig shouldn't have to do much thinking from 1. The only worry would be getting willowed, which is quite a possibility the way this carnival's gone. And I think a few of us have been willowed. But look, he's the best horse in the race. He's justified his short odds. And look, I just don't see a horse beating him in this. It's a layup for him. If I was Craig, and Craig's better jockey than I'll ever be, but I'd sort of let the speed go, pop one off, and if he was 1-1 or 3 back 1 off, he'd have the run of the race and be able to do what he wants from sort of the half mile onwards. And it's really just pointing his head into the clear and letting him run over the top of the horse in front of him.
Lukey, you sort of touched on Willows there a bit. And obviously, he's been criticised by the media and the punters a lot quite recently. Do you think his game plan changes? And if so, what do you think he changes going into Saturday's race?
He's a good enough jockey and a cool enough jockey to understand that that's part of the game. I don't think he changes his game plan. I think he might ride this horse to the line if he was 3 in front. But look, he's been around for a long time. He's had the sort of the hashtag Willowed experience before. I think he treats this just as another Group 1, and he knows he's on the best horse, and he rides that horse accordingly.
Go, Mr. Brightside.
Yeah, well, we'll all load up at the $1.50. It might be part of some multis, but it won't be part of mine.
No.
Yeah. I'm surprised for the market support for a tissue here, though. The Waller camp declared her third up as she headed into the Turnbull. We didn't see a great performance there. Had every chance. She travelled strongly to the line. They were just better than her, in my opinion. The 7-day backup here really worries me. She's always had 3 weeks between runs. And stepping up to the 2000 trip, I just don't know.
It's one of those things too, like her runs were okay. They didn't set the world on fire in the Mackay or the Turnbull. So, like, I can't have any confidence going into this race, but she's trained by arguably the best trainer that Australia's ever seen, Waller, and then you've got good jockey on board, and I don't see an upset coming, and I don't see her winning a Cox Plate, but wilder things have happened.
This is true. And yeah, you never know what's on the cards for Chris Waller. Well, Coco Sun's another genuine Cups contender. Chased steadily for a 6 in the Underwood. To me, she just keeps wanting further, and they're all about getting the miles into their legs. Do you think that she'll run a strong race here today, Luke?
I do. I do think she'll run a strong race. I spoke to Calvin McAvoy earlier in the week. They really rate her. My personal opinion is this is not the race for her, but next week in the Caulfield Cup is the race for her. So speaking to Calvin, they really like her chances, expect her hitting the line. They'll use the alley to go forward or be more positive than usual, and then they'll back up like they did in the South Australian Derby, and the record books reflect that it works for us. So I'm hoping she can do the same in a Caulfield Cup. And as Calvin said, if there's a little bit of rain about on Cup Day, her trenches go through the bloody roof.
For sure. It's interesting you say that they're opting for a bit of a change of tactics. When I was looking at the speed map, to me, I thought she'd just get that nice soft run behind Mr. Brightside and just trail him home. So, yeah.
I think she very well could be the horse in front of Mr. Brightside if they elect to use that alley to go forward. Like I said, Deny Knowledge and Adelaide River roll forward, and Brightside sort of sits up their belt a bit. But yeah, if I was on Coco Sun and I was a team there, I'd be putting her into the race because she's not going to sprint. She's going to want every bit of that 3,200 metres or 2,400 metres when the time comes. So if I can put her in a position where she's only got to make up that length or two, and she gets maybe a soft track, maybe not this weekend she'll get one, but if she's got that length to make up, then she's right in the finish. Whereas if she's got 6 lengths to make up, makes it very difficult.
Regardless, even a placing in this race is great for her pedigree. I know obviously she's got that Group 1 on her, but Autumn Sun's just racking up those black type results.
Yeah, he's been a good bloody sire, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, race 8 is our major feature of the day, the Caulfield Guineas. This is one of the great 3-year-old races on the calendar, and it's sticking to its reputation as a stallion-making race this year, with just 2 geldings and no fillies tackling this race. This is looking to be a pretty open race with so many quality horses in it. To me, I think luck and running is going to be crucial here. But Luke, the market's looking no further than broadsiding at the moment, searching for his 4th Group 1 win after making history when he won the Golden Rose first up. What are your thoughts on broadsiding?
I think the market's right here. He's the best 3-year-old in the country. He proved it last week. I was a touch doubtful on him. I knew he was good enough, but I didn't know he could do it first up, and he proved me wrong. But look, alleys don't worry him. The surfaces of the track don't worry him. The only thing that's my little asterisk there for the weekend is the trip south. I know I can knock a few horses about, but he's with the best team, and if he handles the travel, I think it's a bit of a layup for James and the team going into the Guineas.
Godolphin definitely have the advantage there. I think we discussed on episode 1 about the travel into state when horses can go from barn to barn and nothing changes in their routine. Feed's the same, the work's the same, everything, versus when they go and stay with another trainer, for instance. I quite like Gay Waterhouse's horses here. Do you have either of them as a pretender for this race potentially? We've got Mayfair and Wanneroo.
I don't have anything singled out as a pretender. I just have the rest of the field behind broadsiding, to be quite honest. Like, I know that's a big call, but look, Angel Capital is my horse to run second, followed by the 2 Gay horses. And look, my sneaky chance is probably Ruda Royal, but I think it's just too good with broadsiding.
Sneaky chance at $67.
Well, as a place chance.
Fair enough.
I don't think he can win. Don't get me wrong. Don't be I'm putting the house on him. But I just think, look, he's just overs at the price, is what I'm saying. But yeah, this is a tough race. I think they're all running for second and third. I think most of them know it. And look, I know Gay probably won't have that idea, but her two horses will be out in front, lead up the field. Mm-hmm. And I just think broadsiding comes over the top of him with that finish that he showed last week.
Now, if broadsiding wins this, what's the value of this horse become? Do you think it can be up in the $40 to $50 million sort of?
It'd be ridiculous as a colt too.
Probably already worth that now.
Yeah.
Like,
I'd hate to see that insurance bill.
He's not. He's in the blue colours, so he's not for sale. So we'll never find out. But I think sort of there's plenty out there that know what he's worth, and there's 7 zeros on the end of his number. That's for sure.
He's certainly already a stallion.
There's a value for a potential record breaker there, probably. Maybe.
Well, he's got to go in and win the Guineas, and I think if he wins the Guineas, they'll look to see what his 4-year-old season looks like. But you got to remember he goes to stud as a 4-year-old worth an absolute fortune, and there's no harm in breaking down in a box serving a few mares. So he's worth a bit more money in the stable.
I wouldn't be surprised if this is the last season we see from good old broadsiding. Well, Luke, you briefly touched on Angel Capital before, and for our punters who might be looking for something for their exotics, he's definitely worth a little bit. And for anyone who might be a bit of a stats nerd, he has an 8.1 metre stride length. That is huge. And I think we saw in Queensland, he saw 2 soft tracks and he ran 5th and 9th accordingly. So I think with that track upgrade that we've seen this morning, we're racing on a good 4 at the moment. This is just going to help him in leaps and bounds, and he could come a lot closer to broadsiding than we might anticipate.
Look, I think he can definitely have a fair shake of the stick in this race. I do think he's running for second, and I do think he's outright second in my mind. He's a good horse. He won the Prelude very well. He didn't meet the same quality of horses. I don't want to take anything away from the Prelude field, but he does step up in grade, and this is all their grand finals. And I do think it's a 1-2 with him and broadsiding.
Regardless, like you said, that run in the Prelude was just insane. I think it was, even though he didn't meet the same quality of horses, he was hampered at the 200 and still closed in home really strong. I thought it was quite a mature run.
Oh, 100%. It was a brilliant run. And his win, you take nothing away from his win. His downside here, he's probably got to be further back in the field than maybe he was in the Prelude from the alley. Who knows what broadsiding's going to do, honestly. I think he uses the alley with Gay's horse to come across and be closer than
and Mayfair's drawn inside of him, hasn't he?
Yeah, outside, I believe.
Outside.
So, I do think he'll use that to come across. I do think Gay's 2 will go 1-2 in the run and broadsiding just behind them. Now, where Angel Capital fits into that mix, maybe 2 or 3 pairs further back than broadsiding, is probably the difference. I think Gay's horses turn the corner in front, broadsiding runs those 2 down, and Angel Capital comes over the top of Gay's and runs a nice second. So that would be my first 4, but we're talking Group 1 racing here, and it wouldn't surprise me if there's a complete bloody upset. But yeah, look, that's, for the punting people out there, there's my 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, Wannerua is one of Gay's horses, like we were saying. We're anticipating that he'll go forward and inject the speed into the race from the inside draw. Did well to hold on as well as he did for a third behind Angel Capital in the Prelude. Do you think if he runs a strong 3rd or 4th, he might go on to a Cox Plate with the featherweight it'll carry? I think it'll be around 47 to 48 kilos, if that.
Yeah, it's an interesting factor because they are so well weighted. Just another race where you got to see how he runs, and you got to see how he pulls up, and then there's so many factors in it. But look, if you're talking about the Cox Plate running on Saturday and whether or not you'd scratch or keep him running in it, I think at the weight you sort of have to. But there are horses that are better than him in the race he is in on Saturday in the Guineas. He keeps finding 1 or 2 better, and you talk about running him in a Cox Plate. He doesn't run against his own age group. He runs against some serious horses, and I don't think the weight allowance is enough to deviate that.
Well, looking towards our last race of the day, Group 1 Toorak. This is one of the most prestigious mile races, and it's such a tough race. If you put 1 foot wrong, your race is run already. Who's your contender for this race, Luke?
My contender for this race, this was a hard one actually. It has to be Osipenko. Been running well, gets the weight allowance, and I just think Frosty's ride could be the difference. My sneaky little chance here could be Alsafina, to be honest, at the price. Look, there's weight allowance there. The runs have been good. leading into this, and I just think the way the race could be run could leave another Will very vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the race history and you take that into account, in the last 10 years, we've had a fair few winners, I think 2 or 3 from Barrier 1, and he's starting in Barrier 1. Do you think that boosts his chance a little bit here?
Oh, it's definitely a help. Like, as a jockey's point of view, you don't have to do a hell of a lot of thinking when you've got Barrier 1. But he's got the picket fence and it's hard to knock. But the only divot in that picket fence is the Epsom run, and it is a Group 1, and he lines up again in another Group 1. There's no reason to say why the sort of 1 dash strike rate on his picket fence gets knocked again this weekend. And I really think it's vulnerable. I really think if you run this race half a dozen times, you get half a dozen winners.
Okay.
What about the Queensland hero Antino? There's been so much debate around this horse as to whether he's truly up to the quality that we see during the spring in Melbourne. Do we think he's in this?
I definitely do. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that his Group 1 was that race a few weeks ago, but I hate to say it again, but he is a chance in this. He meets the right race. His last few runs have been good, even behind good horses, and he meets a weaker field than those Group 1s he's been racing in.
For sure.
And if he lives up to the same runs, he can definitely get the job done here. My only query there, he's been up a long time. He's been up nearly 6 months, and it does take him out of him. He's had to travel. He's gone from Queensland to Melbourne, but look, he's definitely a sneaky. I can't have him at the odds, but he's definitely a sneaky.
I'm relying on his weight relief here. I think that'll do him the world of good, just having that lightness on his back. And I don't think we can really take his fee and run into account as a form line. It was a 2-horse race, and then it ended up just being the Jenny race.
Yeah, it was a barrier trial for most of those horses. And look, yeah, he gets a lot of weight off his back. He gets a weaker field. Got a good jockey on.
This could be his Group 1.
Yeah, it could be. We've been saying it for a while, and I know a lot of people in the studio have been saying it, but yeah. Look, it'd be nice to see. It'd be nice to see a Queensland horse stack up and pick up that Group 1. It'd be good for Tony and everyone involved. But like I said, look, it's really which one of those 10 different runs of the Toorak get run on Saturday, and if he gets there, and good on him for it.
For sure. My sneaky here, I'm really intrigued to see Orchestral run. Great form lines. New Zealand horse returning to Australia after a first up run at Ellerslie. Watching the replay, I don't think I can be disappointed in that run. 1,400 metres is well short of her best, but she had a stellar autumn. Won the Group 1 New Zealand Derby before coming over here, took out the Vinery at Rosehill, and then ran third in the Australian Oaks. I just don't know if we're going to see the distance that we need, but dropping down 6.5 kilos in the weights might just do the trick.
Look, if anyone can do it, it's Rodgy. He's been brilliant his whole career, and he knows this horse backwards. So I'm with you. You can't take much out of the first run. You look back into last prep, and she's gone bang, 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 bang. So there's no reason why she can't step out here and win this race. I can't stress enough how open this field is, and I really do think if you're looking for a horse to back, you've got to be backing those sort of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 chances dollar chances, because that's one of the horses that'll get up.
For sure, and I'm definitely black booking her. They're using this as a lead-up run into the Empire Rose. But listening to a podcast yesterday, they were saying that her sectionals, like she can just throw in some sharp sectionals just out of nowhere. So
for a stayer, she can sprint.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing for me is she's not hampered by tempo of pace, which is brilliant for stayers. Like if it's a slow run race and she gives the leaders 2 or 3 legs hand start, she can really kick and fire and run over top of them. Whereas the other one, if it's a fast run race, she can still fire on the back of those runs. So look, we'll get a good look at her on Saturday.
Yeah.
I think that'll be the biggest indicator. But like you said, she heads to a matriarch next start. Like I got no idea what price she is in these early noms, but you'd be all over it. Like she's one of the better horses or one of the better mares in the country. And if she shows it on Saturday, she could start favourite in a matriarch. Definitely.
This race is just such deep form lines and very versatile form lines. So I'll be intrigued to see how this runs.
It is a really weird race. There's probably about 3 or 4 horses you can really put a line through, and the rest is just throw the balls in the air and see where they land.
Exactly. Like you said, we could run 10 different races 10 different times.
To whoever gets the first 4, good luck to you, and I expect a beer.
Well, before we move on, I want to know what everyone's best bets are for the day at Caulfield. It's a massive day of racing with lots of open races. For me, I'm chips in the Toorak. I'm all over Ozapenko each way. At $12, I just can't look past her. Strong run the last few starts, been hitting the line well. I think the draw in barrier 3 will give her a soft run behind the speeds and we'll see that ripper turn of foot as she hits the line. Plus, the massive drop in the weights, just an advantage. Luke, what's your best bet?
I'm with you there with Osipenko. I think she can run huge, but I'm going to go a bit more of a degen approach and take a same race multi with Osipenko and Alsafina, both top 4. I think both those mares will run a handy race. I can either go further and say sort of my first 4 would be the 2 mares into Antino into Desert Lightning. So 1, 3, 7, 12. And I don't think another wheel runs top 4. That's my opinion.
Big call, but I do agree with you there. Jack, what have you got for us at Caulfield?
We're going to race 5. Load up on the nose, Jimmy Star. You've heard it.
Oh, what's at 220 now, I believe.
Does it drop that low?
Yeah,
I
it's
think
Have you already
290
had a
when
bet,
it opened, I
have you?
think.
Fucking hell, I was supposed to get on.
Yeah, get
Look,
on
we're
it.
doing this together.
Yeah,
Can't be
come on.
robbing the price on me like that.
Mate, I just didn't want to snooze and lose, you know.
Just when it wins, you wear the horse outfit and I'll put the Jimmy Star colours on and we'll ride to Ramwick.
I'll shout you a beer. How does that sound?
All right, well, Jack, you're back for another week of the locker room. Give us the rundown on everything that's happening in the NFL world.
There is a lot happening this week, but let's start off. We've still got Minnesota top of the power rankings with Kansas City. I mean, obviously we all saw Kansas there. Do the Vikings hang on for much longer? They're paying $12 for a Super Bowl grand final. Do you maybe put a few dollars onto them at this point?
Look, they're playing super, in my opinion, and I find it hard to knock them, but my heart wants them to keep going, but my head goes, is Sam Darnold ready for a playoff run? Like I know he's playing like he is, and we're into sort of week 5 now, but that first 5 weeks is a lot different to those last 5 weeks, and I don't think they can win a Super Bowl. And I'll call it early. I think they get knocked out in round 1 of the playoffs if they make the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the fact that they've got this far is a bit of a fairy tale itself, which is hats off to them.
Oh, 100%. 100%. It just shows the improvement he's made after coming out of New York, and whether that's the coaching or whatever it might be, but you've seen some players step away from that team and really do brilliant things. And I had him written off. I had him as a backup quarterback for the rest of his career, and he's come out and he's leading the league in pretty much all the stats or top of the stats table, which is huge. And hats off to him because, I did write him off.
Yeah, and speaking of a quarterback doing well with statistics or potentially ending their season on 4,500 yards and 40 touchdown passes and plenty of good stats, Joe Burrow, they can't seem to get too many wins under the belt. The team itself seems to be doing pathetic. Do you think it's just down to the defense that they sort their defense out, that potentially the Messiah kid, Joe Burrow...
Who did they play last
could
week?
do something
Washington? Was it Washington last week or the week before?
No, it was week before.
Week before. And what was the score? 34.
Washington beat them.
Yeah, but it was like 35, 38 or something.
It's close. Yeah.
How do you win games letting the opposition team score 38 points on you? Like 35 points wins 90% of NFL games.
I think there was 73 or 74 points last week in their game.
Yeah,
total.
so look, you want to point the fingers? Yeah, you point the fingers at the defense because the offense is doing its job. Now, I know that stems back into the fact that if you don't win, you don't win and you're a loser, and that's basically how the NFL works. It's your for and against record, and that's the only thing that really matters. But you go through his stats, and he's number 1 in pretty much all categories, but the team is, 1-4 or something?
It must be so
Yeah,
frustrating, especially as such a high-value player, and I don't have in front of me what his contract was worth.
Is it 250 over 5 years?
Yeah.
Or 275 or something like that.
And
Slim
to then
Shady
just be
haircut.
showing up every day, playing your best, and then your defense is just letting you down as a team, it'd be hard to keep that motivation up.
What I hate, and this goes for all sports, like jockeys experience it and captains of football teams, is when the team's doing well, yes, they get a little bit more praise than everyone, but everyone gets a bit of praise, right? But when the team's doing bad, it's his fault.
Yeah.
It's the jockey's fault, or it's the quarterback's fault, or it's the captain's fault. And
the headliner's
It's
fault.
very much, and I understand it. He's the team leader, and he touches the ball on every snap, and he makes those crucial decisions. But knowing NFL like I know NFL, a lot of those big calls come from the top down in management and coaching and whatever it might be. And you're only so as good as the play that's called. And I don't know how much say he's got in that play calling or how much say he's got in that defense room, which was probably none because he's got nothing to do with that side of the ball. But what do? You go out and score 35 points or 30 points and you get run down by a field goal. Like, what else do you expect of him?
I don't know. It's like, for all we know, the defense and the offense could be training at 2 different postcodes. Like, that's how like that's how the game works. Like it's completely different. There's two teams.
Yeah, you see it all the time. Like
Yeah,
you
he's
can win a
copping the
game.
blame.
You can win a game with 1 point as long as the other team scores 0. So, well, technically 2 points for the safety, but anyway.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to Las Vegas with the Raiders. Bit of
Cooked.
yeah,
Cooked is
got
what they are.
Devontae Adams.
Absolutely
he wants
sizzles.
out. He's knocking on the door saying, "Get me out of here."
He's such
What's
a win.
that? A $13 million contract.
Yeah, just
13
left
a
for this
season.
So.
Yeah. The problem with him is he's a very good wide receiver, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But his attitude in the locker room must be so disheartening. And I can see why. Like, he left Green Bay when A-Rod left Green Bay. And look how good Green Bay's going. I know they got the injury, but without Love being injured, they're a serious team. So he should have stayed. So he moves to Vegas, and then Vegas shits the bed.
Yeah.
And now he wants out again. Does he go to New York, or does he go to KC, or does he go to the Ravens? Like, there's plenty of good Super Bowl caliber teams that he can go to. But I look at him like, firstly, is he worth the money? Because he comes with a fucking headache.
Yeah.
And secondly, how long do you get him for? He's getting old. He's whinging
Correct,
all
he's
the time.
32.
His play's good enough, but there are.
I would love to see him go to the Jets. You know, you've got Rodgers there, who he was with at Green Bay, and the other
Alan Lazar.
correct. You know, to get the three of them back together, I think it's just like a really nice and smooth and easy transition. Rodgers hasn't got 10 years left in his contract. We all know that. And obviously Devontae is, as a wide receiver, they have a pretty early career expiry date on themselves. It's a high impact position. So I think he slides in there. I think the Jets become a pretty decent, you know, dollar value bet on the Super Bowl, or at least making it there. I think they're a half decent chance now.
I think he's a good fit for there because obviously he's played with those players. He loves A-Rod. Your biggest question there is who's coaching the team?
Yeah.
Like,
They can sort that problem out.
And you've got an issue now from the outside looking in where Aaron Rodgers is controlling that team, not the coach, not anyone else. And the GMs are leaning on that. And you got a guy that's probably there for another season or two before he retires, right?
Yeah.
So they've just had their head coach fired. Who takes over that role, nobody knows. I'd love to see a Belichick in there. But I can guarantee you now, you get a Belichick in there, he rips that team apart because A-Rod's not taking charge of a Belichick-led team.
No.
And I don't think Belichick brings in Devontae.
No.
You look at his methodology throughout his career, and he was brilliant with Brady, but Brady knew his role. Brady was a man that knew his role. He sat there and he copped he took a little bit less money to play with a good team that was coached well. And I don't think your personalities in A-Rod and Adams are going to take that. So he may well Adams may very well end up in New York, but I don't see them winning a Super Bowl if he does.
I also wouldn't be surprised if the Jets pulled in a coach from a really good college football team like OSU. Oregon are doing great. I think that there's a potential position for them to grab a college football coach and bleed it in. Whether that's the smart decision to do with so many players expiring because of old age, probably not. But I think if you were trying to regrow and rebuild, that's probably something you'd look at.
Can I ask you a question though? Who wants the job? Like, I know a lot of people do, but like, if you're a serious coach in the NFL, would you like to walk into that locker room and take fucking charge? Because I wouldn't. It's a shit fight. Your expectations are up here, your team morale's here, and your team performance is down there. Like, it's terrible.
Coming in mid-season too, it would just be a nightmare.
You're week
to try
5.
and
Your season's fucked, basically, for lack of a better term. You've got an old age pensioner throwing the ball who there's arguments that he's cooked or he's not cooked or whatever it is. I love him. He's a brilliant baller and he's a brilliant quarterback, but he just the last couple of years he's been sort of off on his own tangent, and he's sort of it's almost like his boots are just a bit too big and he's not a team player. And if I was blocking him, not that I would ever be the size to be blocking him, I'd turn around and go, fuck, you need a good wake-up call to be able to lead this team, because I don't have the faith in him leading the team. And so I don't see why the players on the offensive side had the same faith.
Yeah, I think he's relying on his experience. We all know experience does win, but you got to partner it up with a bit of skill and talent, obviously.
He's got the skill and talent, but he just
and the hard work.
I feel like when they win, it's his fault, and when they lose, it's everyone else's fault, which is not how this game works.
No, definitely not.
What about New Orleans? Have they fallen off the face of the
They're
planet?
cooked as well.
Look, they're on to their, third quarterback in 2 weeks? Is that correct?
Carr played, I don't want to say atrocious, so let's just say okay last week, but his first couple of games of the season, absolutely unreal. Going into this game, I actually thought they were a chance at the line. I didn't think they'd beat KC, but I thought the line at 6 was a bit high, and I thought they'd cover that. They ultimately didn't. Carr got hurt in the third or the start of the fourth quarter, and
Quite towards the end. I
quite
just
towards the
remember.
end. And the backup quarterback actually played unreal. They probably should have gone down and scored a TD to finish that game off. I know there was a perfect ball to Olav, or however you say his last
Olave?
name, Olave, and it sort of slipped through his hands. But he balled. He was a bit frustrated, that backup QB, and he was sort of running around all of a show. But he did what he had to do, and he made the yards. So I think they've opted for sort of Carr's not starting this week. So we'll soon see what goes on. But I think they've had another change from what I can remember.
Yep. I just don't think there's much room. I think they're another sort of a shortened version of the Vikings. Come out firing, but I just don't think there's much for them this season.
I think they're back to where everyone thought they were before game one, and they got a real hype. They run into beating the Eagles, or were the Eagles were the underdogs, and I thought that was the biggest myth of all time. And look, they just scraped in the Eagles, but yeah, I think the reality comes crashing down from here on out.
Jack, you just touched on the Vikings. What is going on there?
Oh, God. I don't know. I really don't. They're talking about quarterback putting his hand up for an MVP award. I think Luke mentioned it earlier to me off camera that, someone like
Jaden Daniels
from Washington could be more of the way to go. I think that they're a potential little underdog here, at least to do well in the playoffs. But with the Vikings, I think they've had a little bit of luck and a pretty good run in the draw so far. I think with the NFL, I think teams, and we have been told this before, they sort of prepare for the big games. So if we're playing Kansas in 2 weeks, but we've got Jags next week, let's just prepare for Kansas.
And you forget about the game that's
happens
Well,
all
not
the
forget
time.
about it, but yeah, I think they've had a lot of teams sort of doing that, playing
They're
Kansas the
expected
following
to
week.
win over the shitty team this week, so they prepare for the team
Correct.
that they'll go head to head with. And you see it all the time. Like, how many times did Miami beat the Pats in their dynasty? And not saying that Belichick overlooked them, but yeah, they're just some weird things in the NFL and why they happen. Like, it's never going to happen. He's not winning MVP, but I'd love to see Jaden Daniels be favourite for it, simply because in my eyes he's playing at a MVP caliber for the first 5 weeks of the season. He's carrying that team, and he's got some good players around him. But look, he'll win Rookie of the Year by landslide if he keeps going this way. But as much as it is supposed to be most valuable player, it's a popularity contest, and it's a QB contest for MVP. And like Mahomes probably wins it again this year, too much as everyone sort of.
Well, it's going to be an interesting contest and a great weekend of sports. All the Group 1 action on Saturday. We might have to wait till Monday for the NFL, but at least there's still football happening.
I love these games in London because you can literally start at 11 o'clock at night and go all the way through to 11 o'clock in the daytime if you're a sicko like myself and Jack.
Yep. And then it makes the whole entire weekend of football longer. It's not all crammed into one, 8-hour
So
period.
much betting ahead.
Yes. it is good.
Gamble.
Just period. I have to think about my spare time less, which is great.
Dear God. Well, we'll catch you all next week on Racing Xtra, where the team heads down to Sydney to rip into a massive Everest special with Tommy Berry and Adrian Bott. Racing Xtra is proudly brought to you by Caulfield. Like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts for a next-gen racing experience.